So I'd like to talk a little bit about taper. On the left-hand side, I have a piece of newspaper that produces a strip that just has a little bit of taper. And on the right-hand side, I've got a piece of newspaper that produces a strip that has a lot of taper. And look at the difference in thickness between these two at the center. Their tips are almost exactly the same. But this strip in my right hand gets very thick as it gets towards the center, whereas this fellow doesn't. Now, why would I want to use a thinner strip? Well, I'll show you. We want to use narrow strips whenever we're going to do a complex project. These two projects each have 9 strips, and this project has 15 strips. They're very complicated, but what's most important for you to notice here is that they really, each individual strip had to bend an awful lot to form this shape. And if I had used a thick strip like this, the strip would have broken when I went to braid it. So instead we use a thin strip, and I can bend it and do these complex patterns. So here's 2 examples of when I've used a very thick strip, highly tapered strip. In fact, this strip is almost exactly the same as the strips I used to make this earring. And notice how thick this side of the earring ends up being, and how narrow this end is. It really creates a beautiful effect. This pendant is another example. I used this extreme taper here, and look at how thick my pendant ends up. And it's really these are fairly simple to make, and yet they're quite beautiful. So these are 2 good examples of when you want to use a lot of taper. So here's a funny shaped piece of newspaper that I made strips out of. And taper is all about the distance between the edge that's closest to you and the edge that's furthest away. And you'll see I have a thicker area here, and my thickest area is here. This area corresponds to this area of the braided piece. And this extra thick area corresponds to this area of the braided piece. You can see how taper relates to the finished product. Also notice that this piece of paper is a lot longer than the finished braid, and this is the loss. When you're braiding, a lot of material gets used up just making turns. So you can see I've lost about 1/3 of my length in the braided product. So you need to keep that in mind when you're working.